There. Okay, I don't know what that was about, but it seems to be. Hopefully, it's not a loose connection. That would be really annoying. Okay. Okay. Now they can't hear you right now out there, but it's okay. All right. Let's get started, folks. Sorry about the delay. I have. My guest Dave Brown was just pointing out that he couldn't hear me, and he should have been able to. And so, hopefully, you can hear me. According to my little monitor, it's going out on live stream. Audio is going out. So, anyway, yes, thank you. I did get a haircut and a beard trim today. I appreciate the compliments. Yes. It's been, it was a beautiful, gorgeous day here in the DC suburbs after a couple of days of rain, much needed rain. So I went out. I couldn't stay inside. I had to go out and do some stuff. Anyway, so this is episode 6 of API Case Files Live. And let me give you a little preview of what I've got in mind for tonight. We're going to have our guest Dave Brown on in just a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation with Dave. After that, we're going to look at a video that I have been looking at and still don't quite understand. So I'm hoping that maybe someone out there will have some ideas. And I'm going to propose 2 questions, one of which is, what do you think this is? And 2 is, if you had to replicate this video in your house and you wanted, you wanted to fake it, how would you do it? Not that I'm saying that the witness is faking it. I just want to be able to rule that out, by having people who know how to fake videos saying, hey, I don't know how to do that. So, by all means, feel free to let me know how you would do it. Let's see. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a rant about aliens, about extraterrestrials. Yeah, those guys. And I don't think anybody's going to like what I have to say. It's going to be completely unsatisfying to all sides of that non-debate. Okay. So let's get on with it. I've decided I wanted to have people on the show who are not necessarily UFO famous. That is, you may not have heard them before, but they have opinions and ideas, and they like to talk about UFOs. So I said, well, there's lots of people like that. And so I just started asking them around, would you like to be on the show? And this is the first guy who said yes. Now I've got some other people you may have heard of who are lining up, will be on future shows. And again, nothing wrong with that. Some people who are famous for their research, and have written books even, and or articles that are great value. And one of the guys who has said he will be on is Doug Johnson, who you may be familiar with his very meticulous research on a number of topics, including the Trinity UFO crash hoax, and he's also stays on top of current legislation really, really tightly. He's my go-to guy for what's going on with all these bills. He knows, and so if you have questions about that, well, I'm not sure exactly when he's going to be on. Probably sometime next month or 2. So be ready. Another thing is I wanted to note before I forget is that I am speaking November 1st at the Mysteries of Space and Sky conference in Gambrills, Maryland. I have been posting links to that on Blue Sky, and I will post a link shortly to our homepage at ariel-phenomenon.org. And just to give you a very rough idea of what I'm talking about at that conference, I'll have about an hour, maybe a little bit less. I plan to save a fair bit of that time for questions. I'll be talking mostly about, very roundly, I'm not going to commit to an exact topic yet, but what makes a good UFO case? What makes an intriguing UFO case? And things like that. So, and I'll have lots of examples from real cases. So hopefully you can be there. And if you're interested, it's posted on Eventbrite, and I'll have a link. I'll have a link in the description of this video after the show. And you can just look up MSS 25 on Eventbrite. And again, Peter Resta is the guy who organizes this, not me. I'll be there. I'll have a half of a table, maybe. I'll be handing out little placards. I'd love to show you the placard. I'm going to probably at the next show, I'll have a actual physical hard copy of it. And I'm going to get about 500 of them printed out, and they'll have QR codes and all that cool stuff. So stay tuned on that. But if you can be there November 1st, which is a Saturday, I'd love to see you. Come by and introduce yourself. Anyway, let's bring on, I'm going to switch over to the Zoom meeting. And yes, I do not have the Zoom meeting up. Of course I don't have the Zoom meeting up. Let's see if I can fix that real quick. That's better. Okay. Now, we have with us today is, of course, September 18th, 2025. We have Dave Brown. Say hello, Dave.
Hello, Dave.
I knew you were going to say. Dave was also, I should point out, if this sounds a lot better than our last one, Dave helped me with that. We had a test meeting about a week and a half ago, and he came in and we were able to find the bugaboo, and I think this should sound a lot better. Anyway, so who is Dave Brown?
Just a guy. I'm just a guy, Paul. Believe it or not, I'm just a guy.
Well, okay, so am I. I'm also just a guy, but I could go on for hours about how I'm just a guy. So start.
Well, besides being just a guy, yeah, I'm interested in UAP, and I have been for, gosh, a long time now. But I will say that as a kid, my interest was kind of, it's more entertainment. It was fun to hear about flying saucers and UFOs in Roswell, and it wasn't something that I took very seriously. But I will say that even as a child, like I was still fairly open to the idea of things outside of our world that we just can't explain. And it really wasn't until 2017, right, that things became a lot more, I'd say serious, but that almost sounds like bigger than maybe it actually. I just got more interested. I really wanted to find out more, and I really wanted to dig in a little bit more outside of just the surface stuff, like stories that I heard on television, and all the reporting that we started to hear about government cover-ups. The very famous Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal piece from was it the New Yorker, I think, or maybe it was Washington Post. Apologies, I forget which one that was. But in any event, that's kind of when things kind of blew up for me, right? I started to reach out a little bit more. I started to find people over social media who were also interested in this stuff. And I started to read some books, which is a big deal for me because I'm not really a book reader. I don't really consider myself one who, you know, cracks open a book. But yeah, I've since kind of taken things a bit further. And earlier this year, I joined MUFON and became a field researcher. So, or field investigator, excuse me. And so now I'm slowly immersing myself in some interesting reports that we're getting and some cases that I'm being put on to follow up. I guess I should also say that like me being on the show, I'm not representing MUFON in any sense,
Of
in
course.
any way, shape, or form. My opinions and thoughts around UAP and all these things are purely my own. Um, but yeah, and again, I just continue to to look for more like-minded individuals who are interested in talking about this stuff, and came across your show, Paul, and your presence on Blue Sky,
Hmm.
and find it fascinating because you're out there talking about cases that you're actively looking into, and yeah, I find that stuff pretty fascinating. And so here we are.
So, was there any particular personal experience you had that got you going, or?
No, and I am always jealous of those who have those stories, like, oh yeah, like one day I was out in my backyard and I saw this light and it wasn't a plane, it wasn't a satellite. I I don't have anything like that in my background. I kind of wish I
Oh,
did. I wish that I
yeah.
had some story like that, but I don't. But interestingly, like in coming and in being more open about this and talking with people, I have an old friend of mine who I grew up with, who years ago told me this story about how, as when he was a kid in the same neighborhood, saw a red orb in a field, and he never told this to me before, and it just blew my mind. I was like, how did I never, how we never hear, how we never talk about this before? But I guess it made sense. Uh, he just didn't really know that I guess he had much of an audience in anybody else that he grew up with that would be interested in hearing about that. And so, yeah, that all, again, all that came around about the same time in
Yeah.
like
Well, there's always the
2017. And
stigma, you know,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
which I've certainly been through. Well, I'm older now, close to approaching retirement, so I don't care as much about the professional implications of people thinking I'm a nutcase because but there was a time when I did care about that, and
Yeah.
I would probably have. Well, I didn't probably. I kept it to myself, um, and I still don't discuss it a lot with friends and family that much,
Mm.
um, because I don't want them to be made uncomfortable by, they may think that's some kind of a silly obsession of mine. Um, so yeah, I get that, and but, it's interesting. People who have had these kinds of experiences, especially close encounters, lights in the sky, it's kind of all over the place. Some of them, it's life changing, and
Mhm.
others, it's not. It's like I want to forget about this. I want to put it behind me and move on with my life. So we've seen both of those kinds of attitudes in our witnesses, and others who are just like, for whom believing is seeing. That is, we think that what they saw was nothing actually really all that extraordinary, but they think it was,
Yeah.
and it was life changing. And then I got these borderline cases. A gentleman in Illinois, who we interviewed back in, I think it was 2022. Um, very sincere fellow. Not crazy. Well, I don't judge anyone to be crazy, but not apparently quite sane and functional and has his life together. Um, was He saw something sort of floating over the trees near his house, and you could tell that was a very emotional experience for him. and something that he took very seriously. Even though it was fairly brief and the object that he saw didn't land, it didn't do anything high strangeness. And then he saw about 3 minutes later, he saw what we really do think it was an aircraft. But what he saw first, we don't know.
Mhm.
But when you see that, then you're hyper vigilant. You want to see anything in the sky, and you might think that it's something odd. So he got video of this thing, and it's pretty clearly an aircraft. But and we even, we were able to look on Flight Radar 24 and see which aircraft it was.
Right.
But the so yeah, that varies a lot. And so maybe if you had seen something, you don't know how it's going to affect you.
You
And,
don't,
and
you
some
don't.
people know.
It's a wide spectrum, right? It's a
Yeah.
wide spectrum.
All I can
And,
say is I don't know any way to chase UFOs. They'll find you if the stars align in such a way. But
yeah.
and I have no idea why some people see them and some people don't. We're trying to figure that out. That's one of our little research projects. Why? Who is it who reports
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
very?
I mean, it opened my mind, right? Because even I would, before I took my training, I would think about, planes or drones. But there's a whole lot of other things that are just as prosaic, that can be explained, that are not just drones or planes.
Oh yeah. Well,
Helicopters. There's Starlink satellites. There's the moon. I mean, there's planets, right? Planets and
we get
stars
we get
that
planets.
sure, right? And all these things can be seen in broad daylight. And so yeah, there's certainly a lot of other things that can be easily explained.
Yeah. We used to get a lot of
And yeah,
sky lanterns. I don't know.
sky lanterns. Yeah.
Or some people call them Chinese lanterns.
Yeah,
Although
yeah.
there's nothing particularly Chinese about them, but um, yeah. That there was a burst of those like around that like 2020, and then it seems to
Yeah.
have faded now. Maybe just
Yeah,
people
hell,
don't know
I'm
what they are, or maybe the authorities are clamping down on them because they're illegal almost everywhere.
mm.
Um,
I mean, I'm still interested to hear, more information, around what's behind all of the East Coast, you know, sort of sightings in New Jersey and
the
parts
drones.
of the drones, right?
Yeah.
People see it, they think it's really strange, they report it, right? The people in government see it, they report it, authorities see it, they're talking about it, and everybody's talking about it. Nobody has any answers. And it just keeps going on and on and on, right? I mean, this wasn't like a sighting that just so happened on like an evening or over the span of like 2 or 3 evenings. It was going on for months, and I dare say that it's probably still happening right now. And nobody has any answers. It's
Yeah.
just
Well,
more
maybe
questions.
it's I don't know. The the in the case of drones, they might have just a lot of the videos we saw were really unremarkable. They were aircraft actually, or helicopters.
Right. Yeah.
And so everybody was going out with their cell phones trying to get a video of these mysterious drones and getting something else. Got tired of that, maybe. I know, you think about what's going on in Ukraine, where the skies are full of drones, many of
Yeah.
which are with quite nasty intent to blow up on people. And, for them, it's just like they probably don't even pay attention when they see a drone.
Well, I think they pay. I think
Well,
they
unless
pay
they think it's going to
special
blow
attention.
up at their house, but yeah. But other than the combat implications, I don't. They don't. Nobody's saying, "Oh, there's a UFO."
Yeah.
They're saying, "Oh, that's probably those Russians up to their tricks again." Of course, Ukrainian drones are flying over Russia now too. I have no idea what the Russians think about that because they don't let that information out. But
I'm guessing they're not too pleased.
I'm sure they're not at all pleased. The but here it's a bit more alarming because we don't think people should. There's a lot going on, and now people are saying, yeah, we know what they are, and they're okay. Don't worry about it. They have permission, but that's not true in every case. We know that's not true in every case.
No.
The Norfolk, the overflights at Norfolk, Virginia, the naval base there were definitely not authorized, and you can people have retraced what the flight paths were and so on, and they were almost certainly just ordinary quadcopters, but they were not supposed to be there, and no one has authorization to shoot them down. At least that may change, but there's potential hazards of doing that.
No, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
shooting at something that you're not supposed to shoot at, like a light aircraft, or a drone that coming down hitting somebody or hitting somebody's house. That may or may not. The drone may or may not be equipped with some kind of explosive. You don't know.
That's exactly. Hazardous materials, 100%. That could be a thing, and then you shoot the thing down, and it lands somewhere it's not supposed to be, and people could get hurt. People could get killed. So
yeah, so
I get it. Yeah,
especially you're around Navy bases. So, and also they don't want you to know what kind of capability they have to bring down drones. We know we have a pretty good idea of what the Ukrainians can do because the Russians have gone to using fiber optic drones to.
Yeah, I heard about those things. Right?
Because the radio jamming is so good that it becomes impossible to operate them, and so both sides are using fiber optic drones.
Yeah,
and sometimes they'll see one fly by and they'll just reach out and snip the fiber optics. The thing goes kablooey. It's actually very has joined us as an investigator, is a professional drone pilot. So I'm going to have him back on. Maybe we'll talk about that more. How can you tell a drone from something else? Which just turns out that's not an easy problem. We had a video that was sent to us. I think it was about 3 years ago from California. And the guy said, well, look, there's this light, and it was over the mountains. And it flew very rapidly over the mountains and then descended and disappeared behind the mountains. I looked at it and I go, what if that isn't necessarily over the mountains? It might be a lot closer. The mountains were several miles away. And that could be just ordinary quadcopter with a bright light on it. And the light fades because the quadcopter turns away. And so I thought we can explain everything in terms of just a drone here. But do we actually see the drone in the video? No, the video quality is not good enough. We can't actually see the outline of the quadcopter. But it's a really tricky thing.
It is. And in those cases, I'm also kind of curious about the movement. Like how fast was it moving? What direction did it alter its direction in kind of an odd manner, like something that would.
Yeah, well, if you don't know how far away it is, you don't know how fast it's moving.
No, yeah. There's that too. Yeah.
I have a small recreational drone that I just play with. It's basically a toy, but I can use it to give myself a sense of what it looks like from a distance. I'll fly it out a few hundred feet. I'm supposed to keep it within visual range, which of course I always do. And and I'm not supposed to get it above 400 feet. it's a very small drone, so if you get it above 400 feet, it's really hard to see unless you have the light. I have a light flashing on it, maybe, but you know, that I can use that to sort of get a sense of what it looks like when it's up there. It's quite agile, and it can move fairly fast, and it's a cheap one.
Yeah.
This is not like one of the fancy ones, and it's not a racing drone by any means. But I can make it move pretty quickly, and it looks like it's moving quickly. That's because it's not that far away. And you can barely hear it when it gets like more than 100 yards away. You can hear it if it's not too much noise around.
Right.
If it gets 500 yards away, you can barely see it, but if it's got a light on, you can see the light. But you can't hear it. Not if there's even a little traffic noise, you can hear it. And so it's good if you're going to investigate drone cases. It's good to get a drone and just play with it, get on it, and set it up there and turn the lights on and just play, and you'll get a feel for it, and take some video of it. And yeah, I recommend that because it's really hard these days to tell a light in the sky from a drone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like on that topic, it's probably gonna get more difficult to figure that stuff out because
Yeah, they can get quieter.
It's fascinating. I would love to hear from your drone expert around.
His drones are big because he's a pro.
Well, that's the other thing that I'm so curious about, which is like I understand that like the kinds of drones that people can buy.
Yeah.
And at what point those get.
Yeah.
So it's I am very curious about that because I don't.
Oh yeah, well the drones, the government drones can be very large, and carry weapons and all kinds.
Well, I mean, there's the
targeting pods and stuff like that.
I mean, aside from like your Reaper drone, right? Like something like that, which is, I mean, it's almost the size of a small plane. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Huge. Yeah. I think I'm thinking more of like the sort of drones that have the propellers or that are powered by propellers and quad style.
Like quadcopter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the cinema one, the pro cinema ones, that can carry a pretty good sized camera. Those are impressive.
Yeah.
And they cost a lot of money. And also one other thing you have to remember about drones is not everybody operates them legally. The FAA does not have a big enforcement staff for drones. So it's very difficult, and and you're supposed to have remote ID on your drones so they can, if they're in the area, they can see who's flying which drone. But they're not in the area, generally speaking, and some people don't have remote ID or they turn it off, and so you can get, sometimes it's like the sky lanterns. They're illegal in a lot of places, many places, and people have them anyway.
Yeah.
And they're illegal in New York City, and we have cases of them in New York City. They're illegal in Philadelphia. We've got them, video of them flying over Philadelphia. The drones are really a problem, especially at night, because you can't get a visual ID on what it is. Now, if you have a good pair of binoculars on the daylight, you can say, yeah, okay, that's a quadcopter.
Yeah.
But first of all, not many of our witnesses carry binoculars.
Yeah.
I wish they did. I wish everybody had like a mono binocular or binocular. I was gonna. There it is, folks. These are very cheap. They're tiny, and you can get them like 8x or 10x, and just a little commercial. People carry optics. They won't. They have cell
No, they
phones,
won't,
which
they
with
won't. They
very
got cell
wide
phones.
angle lenses, they can't really get any detail at all.
I mean, some cell, well, I would say that the expensive cell phones now, the optics on those things are
They are a lot
pretty
better than they
powerful.
used to be.
They're
Yeah.
they're kind of incredible. Like you, I saw one that was from a Samsung phone, and it started out already zoomed in into what looked like a concert, right, of stage, and somebody was performing, and then slowly it zooms out, and it's like it was like so many miles away basically when it finished zooming completely that you could not tell what it was looking at with your own eye. So yeah, they're pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Eventually some of that stuff will make its way into
I keep telling people digital zoom is not your friend.
no, digital zoom is garbage.
Well, you introduce all kinds of artifacts when you, and sometimes it's just, yeah, it's no better. Just give me the raw video and I'll be able to zoom in using my video editing software. I do just as good a job. And the and Samsungs have 4x or even 6x optical zoom, which is
Yeah.
pretty good for that such a tiny. Well, they're not so tiny anymore. The cameras on the they're getting to be these big
No, they're
bulges.
huge.
These big bulges on the end of your phone.
Yeah, we're not in the early 2000s
It's
when
more like
people
a
wanted
camera with a
smaller
phone on it rather
devices.
than a phone with a
Exactly.
camera on it.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. People want good photos, and they're willing to deal with camera bumps. It didn't used to be that way. Again, like I remember in the early to mid 2000s, like a bump on a phone just was like, what? Are you kidding me? And like,
yeah,
why would it be so big? I want something that I can fit in my pocket. And it's
yeah.
completely
Well, I have
flipped
a
now.
very
And
mid-range phone, and you can see that there's not much of a bump. 4, even 5 lenses, but it's the zoom is not great on this, but I have other cameras that can get much better zoom on. So
yeah,
this is just for casual snaps, and just because I have to have it. I have this with me everywhere I go. I don't have a interchangeable lens camera with me everywhere I go. I mean, this is my birding camera.
oh,
Now it gets way better results, but
I would hope so. Look at that lens.
yeah, it's a full frame equivalent 800 millimeter lens, and I really like this camera. I use it a lot, but I can't put it in my pocket, and I'm not going to carry it with me everywhere because I'm afraid it'll get stolen if I leave it in the car or whatever. So I just I have it with me when I'm going out. I know I'm going to be photographing targets that are just are very small. And even then, some things are so small that it's hard to get a good photo. If I'll ever have a better telephoto, well, maybe I will if my wife will let me buy one. It's a really good telephoto lens. But you can't get that on a camera, on a cell phone. You never will. But they are certainly way better than they used to be. But still,
Oh yeah, yeah,
the contrast transfer is not great. And if you look at something that's 100 yards or 200 or 300 yards away, under less than ideal lighting conditions, it's going to be really hard to resolve any kind of detail.
yeah.
Is that a quadcopter? Maybe, if it's close enough, you'll be able to tell, or if the lighting is perfect, you'll be able to tell. But in kind of environments we typically have, where there's haze and there's glare and there's sunlight coming in from the wrong direction. Yeah, it's tough. And at night, forget it. Even with a very good camera, it's very difficult to tell what's going on at night.
It's going to get more also propelled, and the fact that even now you can, I don't know if they're commercially available, but there's a drone that is able to go underwater and also then emerge from that water and fly as a regular drone in the air. So they're cross medium already. Um, and it reminded me of a video that I saw that was like a, it was like a DARPA video, or some contractor that was demonstrating a new way for drones to move, and it was I believe it was like a sphere,
Hmm.
and it was being powered by, I believe it was like little jets.
Oh,
And basically it it was this floating sphere, and it could move at sort of 90 degrees and could hover. It was loud, and you could see the little jets kind of firing to keep it in place, and to
right.
move around.
A proof of
But the fact
concept.
Yeah, but the fact is, like, that was in the 90s, right? I mean,
Yeah,
imagine that technology now, how many generations later, if they continue to improve on that,
yeah.
and why couldn't we have spheres that are just floating around, you know, like makes me think of the Mosul.
Some dimensions and not others so much. Like energy management is still really hard to do.
Yeah.
And we're really good with information and with optics, and we can keep getting those smaller and lighter and better. But propulsion is one of those things that's why they're basically airplanes haven't changed in 40 years. That because you still need energy, and the only way to get that energy is to burn a lot of combustible chemicals at high speed. And nobody's come up with a better way. And so, we still have, people are now finally starting to talk about hypersonic jetliners that are really practical, not just an expensive national prestige item like the SS, real, ultrasonic, not ultrasonic, supersonic jetliners that they're actually practical. Maybe not. It's that hard a problem to solve. And that's why nobody's gone much, other than the military, goes much over 600 miles an hour in the
Yeah.
air, and hasn't done since World War II. And the but and DARPA is always, when DARPA does a concept, there's some things they will say, well, we don't care about this, and this. We only care about demonstrating that. And so it will be noisy, and it will be, expensive, and probably won't be that useful. But do we really want this for a system we want to deploy? But and that has to actually be maintainable, operable by a enlisted guy in the field, and repairable, and all these other things that are very hard. And the so I don't necessarily project all technology ahead. See, it always improves exponentially. Some things do get a lot better, some things don't. And we're just talking about cameras. Cameras have gotten a lot smaller and better and faster because electronics is so much better and faster. But even but you hit a limit there at some point. But program instead of and there are points where I'll draw the line. I'll say, yes, the government program could be this, but it couldn't be that. And we'll and part of that you get by asking people, say, do you really think they have this capability? or we'll have it in the future, and somebody to shake their head and say no, and they may be or may not be telling the truth. But other times you can just say the physics of this is such that we don't have any physics that says we can do it, and that's my close encounter was one of those things where I don't see how we could have done that the way it was done. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me. But anyway, yeah, but drones are a challenge because all you see is a light moving around. You don't realize how close it could be. It could be a lot closer than you think. It could be just 100 yards away and you wouldn't hear it, especially if you're in a city and there's a lot of noise. So
yeah.
Out in the country, you might hear it 200 or 300 yards away, but still, it's not that far, which is, I don't know, in your MUFON training, did they go into drones much or?
No, my personal opinion is that there's some things that could be updated in terms of the training because, again, like drone technology has come so far that when I was kind of studying that part of the manual, I did feel like there was more information that could be given to field investigators about drones and about the myriad of shapes and sizes and capabilities that exist now and maybe didn't exist or that we knew of 10 years ago. It's definitely grown. But yes, they are mentioned, but not in the sort of level of detail that even in this conversation,
Yeah.
I appreciate, because it's not something that I thought a whole lot about, or at least not since earlier in the year when, again, there was the whole big drone flap, around the East Coast. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating topic in the world of UAP that I don't find many people are talking too much about. But yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I looked at the MUFON training manual. I had one quite some years ago. And I thought, well, this is all stuff that kind of just makes common sense. I already knew a lot of it. I had some training in astronomy and in other areas like that, but
I read all the procedures, but it is a completely different beast when you're speaking with somebody who has a story to tell and has belief in what they saw and certain evidence that they're presenting you with, and it is very different. It's very different.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it. I definitely am enjoying it.
Yeah, the video analysis is something I've always focused on.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing that, although it's often extremely challenging to come up with an explanation for a little flickering dot in the sky. Could be a high altitude balloon, but most of those are difficult to track, if even it's even possible. A couple of shows it's nighttime, two dots that are kind of going back and forth and moving around, seemingly in sync, but not clearly. And I don't think we got very far with that case. She may have been looking over at a military base, but I'm not sure she was. That you get I was able to enhance it enough you could very clearly see what was going on, but it's dots moving in the sky. If anybody has any ideas, by the way, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to share the video with you if you want to see it again. It's on our YouTube channel, but It's near the top, but that was 25001. Um, and we get most of the videos we get are little dots uh, in the sky, quite often at night, and really difficult to analyze. But that's part of the challenge, you know. Had another one that was right after a really big snowstorm in Pennsylvania. There was this very bright light in the sky that this couple saw. He got some is moving with respect to the buildings that are in the foreground. The problem was that it was so dark that the buildings in the foreground were almost invisible. Had to pull those out of the noise. And you know, you say, well, you know, it's the way it's moving could be consistent with the drone, but what is somebody doing out there at that hour after a very heavy snowstorm, flying their drone around with a really bright light on it? Well, you know, it's possible. It's possible. But there were a couple other things about that video that are odd. So we closed it as unidentified. Also, it was near a nuclear power plant, but it wasn't actually over the nuclear power plant. So it wasn't in the same direction. It was maybe 30, 40 degrees off in azimuth from that. So, you know, but we get stuff like that all the time. I think you'll see that a lot. You'll get, look at this cool video I shot of the UFO, and there's like, blink, blink.
Right.
So, yeah, we got over 100 witness submitted videos in our YouTube channel now. I encourage folks to go have a look at them. You mentioned you wanted to, what's the appeal? I guess we should probably talk about this a little bit. What's the appeal of being a field investigator? Is it talking to people who've seen these things, or is it solving the puzzle? What's the most interesting thing for you?
I can answer the question around kind of why I wanted to go this route, or like what attracted me to, you know, to becoming a field investigator and getting more hands-on. Because I'm still only a few months in, it's hard for me to say like what aspect of the, you know, the practical side of what it is that I'm doing is most compelling, most interesting. It's hard for me to put my finger on that. But going back, I just, you know, again, like I wanted commenting on videos that we've seen, or, you know what I mean? Was just passively, you know, talking about this stuff. And I wanted to do more. Like, and, you know, is there some way for me to get involved and have more than just to say in what's going on, but maybe helping to really contribute something into the conversation that's of use, you know? And maybe that's some experience that I've had in talking with a witness or investigating, you know, a scene, or talking with somebody who's had a close encounter of some kind. I kind of fell in love with the idea of, you know, traveling to a site, you know, where, you know, somebody's reported something has landed, and, you know, maybe it's a, you know, UFO in a field, and it, you know, and it left behind, you know, some kind of odd ring in the, you know, among the wheat or something, you know what I mean? Like I've had this, like, this very kind of Hollywood, you know, cool kind of impression in my head of what that,
Well, yeah,
what
boots on
that
the
would
ground
look like, right?
are very rewarding to me when you can do
Yeah,
it. I can't
yeah.
do it. You can't do it in every case.
No, certainly not. And I guarantee, even with my limited amount of time, I'm almost certain that I'm going to have very few of those opportunities to follow up on stuff like that, where it's going to be more like hey, I took this photo, hey, I took this video. And that's fine. But yeah, I long for the day where I'm given an assignment that is, you know, kind of meatier, that really is going to pull on some of these um, other levers that I have that I've, not really utilized yet, like, cordoning off a scene and collecting samples and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
All that cool stuff that
we've trained for that, but
yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's the only time we've done it has been some very, very old scenes that didn't work out very well.
Yeah,
The not on a fresh, like we saw this last night sort of thing.
right, right.
Uh, but
Yeah,
still,
but fell in love with that stuff, and the stories of oh God, I can't remember his name now. Uh the the guy who became very popular for cattle mutilations and investigating cattle mutilations. He wrote a book
Chris
called
O'Brien.
No, he wrote a book called The 59th Parallel that was all about the pattern that he eventually saw
Mm-hmm.
uh, of like these these cattle mutilations popping up in certain states over time, and he had like a little his little board, and he would put pins, and eventually he saw this line. He was like, oh yeah, this isn't a coincidence. There's something about this this pattern, this path. But anyway, like his book was really really fascinating, and the investigations that he did into these cattle mutilations, and the physical samples that he took, and the things that he'd seen that were consistent across all of these mutilations. No blood. Very clean cuts that couldn't have even been made by a scalpel or maybe even a laser because it would have left behind burns or scarring or blood. Um, yeah, just super fascinating stuff, man. And I just I'd love to be called in to investigate a case like that. But yeah, that's the stuff that that I kind of fell in love with, that keeps me
Yeah,
going. But yeah, it is fascinating to hear from the actual witnesses who are seeing these things, and have no explanation for what it is that they saw, and don't believe that it was a plane because they couldn't hear an engine noise, or you know what I mean. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, like I've been able to kind of explain away a few cases, and a few that there just wasn't enough evidence for me to be able to suggest, oh well, that was clearly a Starlink satellite that you saw, or that was Jupiter, or any of the these other prosaic explanations. It is kind of interesting to hear these stories that I can't explain, and I am again a little jealous that people have had these experiences, and maybe multiple experiences. I'm like, God, I would love to see something like that I just can't. I can't explain away, or track back to a particular plane on flight radar, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the best cases are the ones that are not only hard to explain, but when there's a good amount of information about the case, and you still can't explain it. We close as identified, and we have a pretty strict definition of identified. It's not, well, it could have been Venus. You have to show that Venus was over there where where the guy
yeah,
was looking at the time he was looking at it, and the weather was good enough he could have seen it. Um, there's a standard there. You can't just say, well, you can't just wave your hands and say, oh, he must have seen Venus. Um, but the still we get probably 70% of the cases are identified. And then we have what we call the low strangeness unidentifieds, which are, we don't know exactly what that was, but it wasn't that weird. it it it's it didn't do anything particularly odd, and so we're going to call it unidentified, but our strangeness rating is low. And so, others we get, some of the best cases are the close encounters, because those are much more difficult to confuse with something, like a planet or a satellite or whatever. We had, and one of our best boots on the ground cases was, it wasn't me, it was Marcia who went to visit the site. This was in Pennington, New Jersey, central New Jersey, which is just a little bit north of Trenton, if people know where Trenton is, which again is just a little bit north of Philadelphia. This guy had a single, he was by himself, but he had a really fascinating close encounter. And he made a number of good sketches, not artistic sketches, but informative sketches about what he'd seen, and made a lot of detailed notes about it. And Marcia went out there and she walked with him over the place where he was, and they made measurements and so forth. No physical evidence. She didn't find any broken branches or any shards of stuff on the ground, but still it was a really, it was a good site visit investigation. And even though this guy was by himself, we judged him highly credible, and so we don't have an explanation for that case. It was a good close encounter case, and documented this not only the next day, but the very same day, within like an hour after the case, after the sighting ended, he was started documenting it, which is what we're looking for, in.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. If they had, the wherewithal to not only document in any, in however they could do it, but also to reach out to you guys to, to let you know, and have somebody come out and check it out.
Yeah. But, and another interesting thing, a lot of people ask us, why isn't there video? And you ask somebody like him, and you're going to say, I never thought to get my phone out. It was the last thing on my mind.
I can't blame him. Look, I can't, I can't say that, like, just that I would, have the wherewithal to, like, pull out my phone and start recording. And even if I did, like, I feel like I would just be fumbling around with my phone because I'd be so jacked up with adrenaline that I'd probably miss, tapping on things and opening up the wrong apps.
I've had people tell me that they felt that it was just the wrong thing to do, to get their phone out.
Yeah.
It just felt wrong. I don't understand that.
I do.
On my one close encounter, I had no camera available to me. It was in the house. The house was about 100 feet away, and I did not want to take my eyes off what I was looking at.
Sure. I liken it to when my kid has an event at school, they're performing or something. I could take video, like I could be the dad, hold up my phone.
I'm that dad.
Yeah, that's okay. That's like, just be in the moment. Just enjoy this, don't have to record it. Don't worry about your phone. Just relax and enjoy, right?
Right.
And so I think that I can understand, those people who've maybe explained that is the reason why they didn't want to capture it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that isn't the norm. Generally, I hope we're a little bit more abnormal. Those of us that don't choose to do that, but
I hope MUFON does this as well. If someone doesn't get video of an event, we ask them why. We ask them what they remember about it that made them not get their phone out and take a video or even a snapshot. And we get different answers, and it's interesting the variety of answers we get, but a lot of them is just
Mhm.
that a lot of them just say, I didn't think to do that.
Yeah,
It never occurred to me.
that's okay. We all have brain farts sometimes too.
Well, I think it's maybe it's just that moment, that experience is so absorbing. You don't think, oh, I got to be able to prove that I saw this later.
Yeah,
You just
100%.
you believe, you're there. You don't need to prove it. But in my one close encounter, I really, really wanted to be able to capture it, and couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's a
this
good
was
that's a
in the
good
days
point.
before I had my phone with me constantly. But
Yeah, but that's a good point though. I have yet to experience someone who's recounting an encounter and um, not having captured something, or if they didn't, it's because what they're telling me was something that happened in like 1980,
yeah,
way in the past where yeah, of course there were still cameras, but um, camera in your pocket wherever you go isn't wasn't a thing. So, but I'll definitely whatever happens to me, I'll definitely remember to ask why they didn't capture. It's a good question.
yeah, and I'm sure that if you investigate enough cases, you'll come across these situations. Um, and generally, people who see something distant, see the light in the sky, they don't hesitate to get their phone out. And because it's not that engaging an experience for them. It's just, oh, that's a funny light. Wonder what that's doing up there. It's more curiosity or anything. But when close encounters, which are a small percentage of what people really experience, we rarely get video. Rarely. The Had a couple, no video, of course. They say it was the size of a school bus, and it was moving slowly overhead. And the guy looked at it through binoculars, and he said it just filled up the field of view of his binoculars. He couldn't get a lot of detail, but the no video, and that a two witness close encounter case. That's what you want. Even more than two witnesses, but they didn't get anything.
Yeah.
So, and we had another guy in Colorado, again, surface of a lake, and then skimming along the surface of the lake, again, about the size of a large vehicle, according to his estimate. This was in Colorado. Not far from the big army base up there, but not on the army base. And he he told me he didn't think it would have been appropriate to get his phone out. He just felt like it wasn't, he was being privileged to witness something, and it was sacred, and he didn't want to violate that trust. That's how he felt. So his phone was crappy anyway. But I don't know if he would have gotten anything good, but that's you'll see that. I think it'll be illusory, but others will seem like this person really did experience this. It really did. We have other cases like that in our files, but they're not the majority of cases. They're a small minority.
Right.
And those are in my view, the best cases. In terms of how hard it is to mistake it for something else, is when it's right in your face.
Yeah.
Not that people can't make mistakes under any circumstances.
Right.
think we're going to wrap up pretty soon here. We've been talking for about an hour, which I've enjoyed very much. But there's a couple of things I want to sneak in before we close out this show, this episode 6. So I think, Dave, I'm going to say thank you and come again sometime. We'll talk some more. Maybe after you've done a few more cases, we'll have some more fun stuff to talk about. But this has been exactly what I hoped it would be. And thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Paul. This is really great, and I do hope that we can continue to have a dialogue. But this has been really fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we will. And by the way, I know you're on Blue Sky a fair bit. So am I.
Yeah.
I am not on Twitter anymore to speak of, and hardly
Neither
ever
am
on
I.
Facebook. So if you want to, I having my doubts philosophically about social media in general, but philosophically and practically, although Blue Sky's not too bad, but sometimes the engagement there is soft, to put
You
it.
know, it can feel like an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well,
So I get it.
yeah, I don't mind. I didn't leave Twitter because people were challenging me. I left Twitter because people weren't engaging, and because of all the phony middle school drama that I had no use for, and the Nazis.
And the Nazis.
Yeah, once the Nazis move into the bar, you either got to punch the Nazis or just leave the bar.
Yeah, I hear you.
So anyway, yeah. So I guess that's where people can find you, is in Blue Sky. And
You can find me on Blue Sky.
do you have a blog
and
or anything like that?
I don't. I really don't.
Okay.
I've got very little presence otherwise. I think I jumped into Twitter back in like again, 2017s, and once I got a little tired of some of the politics there, I moved over to Blue Sky, and I'm happy to continue to maintain my presence there, but that's about it.
Well, we're not planning to leave Blue Sky, but it's a different topic.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks a lot, Dave, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good, Paul. Thanks so much again. Have a good night.
Bye. Okay, I'm gonna end the Zoom meeting. All right, and switch over to presentation mode. This thing. Okay, now you should be able to see my DaVinci Studio app window. And I'm going to start with a video, actually a series of video clips that I received. And I have, let me just show you the whole thing. Bring that up. Okay, this what I call indoor orbs. This was sent to me originally by Justin Bamforth. You may have heard of. He's the author of a book or two. He's done some podcasting. And Justin is frequently at the Mysteries of Space and Sky meeting. I don't know if he'll be there this year or not. I'll let him advertise that if he is. Anyway, I'm going to bring up a window that you can see this video on. Let's see. Why can't you see it? Well, Streamlabs is a little odd that way. There we go. Okay. Now, let me just bring this all the way across here. All right. Now I'm going to show you this video edited by me, and here's the original clips we had. I graded them to improve the contrast a little bit. Clip, the first clip. Another clip. See, there's two things there. One close, one further. These are 720p, by the way. I never did get the 4K clips. Okay, now we're going to go slow motion on some selected bits of that. Freeze frame. So it's almost like there's a bit of a optical distortion. So these things are somewhat translucent or transparent. See that when it crosses that door frame, it seems like it's distorting it. It's in front of it. That's one thing I don't understand. And then here's another slow-mo. See the distortion there. Solid, but it's like a bubble of some kind. So it's not just somebody shining a flashlight on on the door. So that's the end of that. I guess my question is not so much for, I'm not going to make a statement about it. I don't really know what it is. The question that I have for you is how would you replicate that? If you could were tasked to make a video that looked like that, how would you do it? I don't know. I was hoping someone had an answer. I have other orb videos from this same person in that same house. They are a little different from that, but they're basically small, apparently luminous, translucent spheres, like a some kind of, they have some kind of surface to them. So send me your ideas. I'd like to know. I consider this an unsolved case. And if I go to my DaVinci Resolve page, I can scan through this slowly. I can slowly move through frame by frame, backwards and forwards. And I don't get satisfaction. I don't know what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm just not using enough of that in particular. And then this one, let's see. When it passes in front of the other room, right there, I could be wrong. Anyway, see there? Seems like it's just sort of overlaying itself over whatever's behind it. Now, I have interviewed the lady who shot these videos. Lives in California. I would be happy to make a transcript of that conversation and make it available, publicly available, if someone wants to know what was going on there from her point of view. Anyway, we'll stop there on this particular segment. And if you have any ideas, by all means, get in touch. If you go to our website and click on Contact Us, you can get in touch with me easily that way, or you can also send an email to reportaufo@protonmail.com, and I will get that within 24 hours, probably faster. And so let's go back to just my pretty face. And we're going to talk a little bit about a topic that's important to me and hopefully important to you as well. One of the things that I've been, and have since I was a kid, since I was 10 years old or even younger, I thought, well, maybe UFOs are spaceships from another planet. I still think it's not crazy to speculate thusly and say, well, maybe some of the UFOs that we see are from a distant technological civilization. That is not mentally deranged to think that. In fact, it may turn out to be the case. But there are problems with it. And with what follows, I freely admit that I am probably wrong about some of, or even all of it. I don't mind being wrong, so long as it advances the conversation, as I just discussed with Dave. What I want to talk about tonight is something commonly known as the ET hypothesis. An attempt to define what the ET hypothesis is, why it's not really a hypothesis, and my problems with some of the things that are often said both for and against the ET hypothesis. It all boils down to a virtue I think we need much more of in this community, which I call epistemic humility. Let's talk about some of the ideas some people have for explaining UFOs. First, we know we can explain most UFO reports as simple misinterpretations or misperceptions. We have many cases like that in our files. That is true. We've known this for a long time, and it's not very interesting. What you and I are interested in are the ones that are strange and hard to explain, especially the close encounters we just talked about, with silent objects moving in a way that seems impossible. We all want to know what these are, although we have no way of knowing if we had an explanation, however exotic, for one close encounter that it would work on one. One big problem is that it doesn't help to solve a mystery by replacing it with another equally obscure, even more obscure mystery. Whatever we call this new mystery, we might as well just call it our ignorance. Giving our ignorance a new name is not progress. An even worse temptation is to try to answer a big question once and for all with a pat answer. Aliens is most often this sort of empty explanation. Whatever we don't understand, it's aliens. I call this the aliens of the gaps because it reminds me of the old and mostly abandoned God of the gaps arguments. With the God of the gaps, anything that science couldn't explain was to be ascribed to divine agency. And since God was all-knowing and all-powerful, any gap could be explained without any further work. However, the appeal of this lazy approach waned as science narrowed the gaps, and we don't hear much of it anymore. But we still get the aliens of the gaps. We assume, because it is easy, that aliens can do anything, anywhere, at any time, to anyone, and then disappear, leaving no trace. The first question that should occur to you, how do I test such an idea? It's not at all clear, is it? A good hypothesis is, among other things, informed. That is, we have to know what we are talking about, and we have to be able to talk about it in precise terms. In what sense is the notion of a problem is the negative nature of the definition? Extraterrestrial simply means not human and not from here. Very nearly the entire universe is unknown to us, and yet people throw around the notion of an extraterrestrial hypothesis as if there is one. There isn't, as far as I can see. Then some will say that the ET hypothesis doesn't fit the data, as if there was a mountain of quality data. There isn't. And there is an ET hypothesis that fails to predict it. There isn't. This is often used as a pretense to advance an even less informed hypothesis. On the other hand, we often hear that there is no evidence of extraterrestrials when we have no idea what the evidence would look like. At least we know there is one technological civilization in the galaxy. Us. However, that civilization is presently very far from capable of interstellar travel. We don't know what our civilization would look like in the future if it survives long enough to develop interstellar travel. Science fiction writers often make a good living speculating about this, but they are constrained to not let it get too weird, or their characters won't be relatable. We just don't have any idea how weird it could get. One science fiction writer who thought about the far human future was Arthur C. Clarke. One of the things he was famous for was Clarke's laws. These aren't really laws, but they can be used to jumpstart thought experiments. The third law is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now, apply this thinking to any really good magic trick you have experienced. The effect is puzzling, baffling, and leaves you thinking that it must have been impossible. If you have experienced a close encounter, isn't that pretty much the state you were left in? What are we left with? Should we completely abandon aliens as a concept, even a vague one? I think the answer is no, but we do have to try to find answers to some of the questions before us, where we do know what we're talking about. What we probably should shelve for now is hope for a single, grand, once and for all explanation of UFOs. It should be about learning to ask better questions. Well, just because we don't have a classic paradigm doesn't mean we can't have reasonable research questions that can be addressed with the data we can obtain. Next time, I hope to talk about that. Okay, well, thanks for joining us tonight. If you have any questions, comments, we would love to hear them. The Contact Us tab. You have to do a small math problem to get past the CAPTCHA, but feel free to. Again, I'll be at sometime in early October, and we will have, I don't know who the guest will be, if there will be one. Although I'm going to see maybe if Marcia wants to come back and talk about that close encounter case we discussed earlier, New Jersey. Maybe get 10, 15 minutes from her on that. And we'll get some other people in. If you would like to be on the show, just raise your hand. Let me know. Again, I can be found on Blue Sky. I have a personal account, and then there's also an API Case Files account on Blue Sky. So very reachable there. And we'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. You don't have to remember it or write it down. And I'll also have a link to the video I just showed you, so you can have a look at that and tell me what you think. And I would really, we're always looking for two things. We're looking for better thought out ideas than we have had on any given case. And we're also looking for corroboration. If you know information about a case, let us have it. Also, one other case in particular that I really find fascinating, although it's not an official API case, is what I call Airman Pat. It was a fellow I interviewed, and he was at Cannon Air Force Base in the mid-70s. There are reports of UFOs in and around Cannon Air Force Base in the mid-70s. He had a particularly interesting story of a hot scramble of F-111s and an interesting phone call with someone who was using a false name. So that interview is available on our API Conversations podcast, in conversation number 20. And again, I'll have another link that you can click on that. If you know anyone who was at Cannon Air Force Base or in Clovis, New Mexico in the mid-70s, or if you were, I really want to hear from you. So please get in touch. Also, if you knew Staff Sergeant John Zondor, he was one of the people in that story. get in touch, please. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I thank you for tuning in, and we will have much more about UFOs again at that